What is going on, my fellow geeks, and welcome back to Raving Geeks.
I do have a media recommendation.
I love Lord of the Rings. Superheroes, movies, a little jack of all trades, I guess.
So what makes me a geek?
What is going on, my fellow geeks, and welcome back to Raving Geeks, your weekly pop culture podcast from Central Michigan Life, where we discuss all things geek culture, which is like high culture, but better. If this is your first time joining us, make sure you follow the CM Life Instagram and Twitter pages for updates on the podcast, and look for us wherever you find your podcasts, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on our website at www.cm-life.com. My name is Brennan Valentine, and I'd like to thank you all for joining me and my fellow co-hosts this week, who will introduce themselves in a second with our question of the week. This week's question of the week is we're going to go back to high school and play Would You Rather. And I'm going to ask you, would you rather live forever with no superpowers, just a normal person that lives forever, or have superpowers, but every time you use your superpowers, your lifespan gets shorter? I will start. I'd like superpowers. The idea of living forever, even if I don't like age and like stay like a good, healthy age, does not appeal to me. And I'm, here for a good time, not a long time. So I'd have it, even if it's a mildly lame superpower, like as long as it's not something that like is completely unusable, but like if it makes life more convenient for me or someone else, I'd go with that one. So how about either of our co-hosts?
Hello, Isaac Hunter here. That is a good question. Because I feel like when a lot of people pick superpowers, like hypothetically, they usually go for some sort of immortality anyways. And so I'm assuming with the second, every time you use your superpower, your lifespan gets shorter. I'm assuming those are powers that like you have to consciously use. It's not like Cyclops just always shooting off his eye beams.
That would be my assumption. And I feel like the harder you use them, the more lifespan gets taken off. So like if you have like luck-based powers, like you can kind of like Domino from Deadpool, if you're trying to make something big happen, like you're trying to like completely change like people's fates or like make it happen that like someone does not get hit by a bus or something like that, versus like you want to like I don't know, like
Win the slots.
I don't know, yeah, something like that doesn't seem to take like too much effort. It's going to take less off your life, but it's like you don't know exactly how much or how much time you had to begin with.
Oh man. Is the first one only like age based? Is it like you can still, die naturally? Like if a rock falls on you, you still die, right?
No. Like you would like, okay, what's the show called? The one where he's like a medical examiner, but he can't die. Like people have murdered him and then like thrown him in the lake, and he just like walks out of the lake. Like you can like die and you'd feel pain of being like tortured to death, but then it'd be like a Vandal Savage situation if you're familiar with DC.
Yeah. He's the guy that used to be a caveman, right?
Yes, depending on
Yeah.
the universe.
Oh gosh, I think I'd pick the second one like you. I just, immortality is cool and all, but if you're the only one, it gets boring. Plus, like, dying is something that one day I'm like, I'm gonna die and I accept that. And it'd be kind of terrifying if everyone else died and you didn't. Yeah, even if my superpower was lame, I mean, if it's lame, I guess I could just not use it and I'd live a normal life. So, you know, if like I can disintegrate people, I'm like, I'm never gonna use that. So I'm just gonna be a normal person. So I'll take the second one.
Nice. And we actually have a guest host with us this week. Patrick, would you like to, before you answer the question, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, what you do, stuff like that?
Oh, I would love to. Hello, my name is Patrick Bouman. I am a junior at Central Michigan, and it's my first time on the podcast, and I'm actually a reporter at CM Life, so I'm a little familiar with these fellas do over here. I think I'm going to have to agree with my co-host that the second option is a lot more viable because, it's better to burn out than to fade away. I don't want to live forever. That does not sound fun. Being alone for all eternity. And I think I think one of you said like that the thing like limiting your lifespan when you use your power, like if it's dependent on like how intensely you use the power, I think that would be cool. I would go with something like teleportation. So like if I
Die so fast.
well, that's the thing, like if you use it for to like go across a super long distance, then yeah, it would take a solid chunk out of your lifespan. But like if you go like, I don't know, if you need to get somewhere like nearby really quickly in an emergency, then maybe it'd only take like, I don't know, a couple of days off your lifespan. Who knows?
That's a good point. Isaac, do you have a power you might choose that like because I feel like there's like flight is a dangerous one because I'd want to
Yeah.
fly everywhere. Um and that would suck. And the longer I fly, the more likely I'm gonna die.
Flying to an early grave.
Yeah.
Um. Oh man, if it's, I'd probably want to pick a power that I'd be okay with not using all the time. And so like really serious. I mean, and then I'm gonna throw out something like I do think that like being able to rewind time would be kind of cool, especially with that power, because it's like when you rewind time to like fix a problem, like you also know you're rewinding your own lifespan, which is kind of cool. Which actually would make for a cool storyline, to be honest.
Dude, we should start writing comics based off
Yeah.
of in a universe where like powers like have a biological toll. What? Oh, dang, that'd be cool. I think I'd go with those luck-based powers that I mentioned though. Like if I could just kind of like manipulate events. Dude, could you imagine like the climax of like a one-off story with either time-based or like luck-based ones where like at the very end it's like, well, I have to rewind time far back enough or like undo something so big
Yeah.
that
It's like
it's
either
gonna
I die
it's
or everyone else dies.
yeah, or like I
Yeah.
need to manipulate the situation so it does not happen. Like I need to move a meteorite out of the way. Like I need to stop it from hitting Earth, but it's going to kill me.
Or I need to teleport to Mars.
Yeah,
The only
that too.
way. Yeah.
Uh, as like a hero, you have to be like I have to get across the globe now, and I will die like within 10 minutes of doing this, but I need 5 to solve the problem.
Well, I don't know if I pick teleportation then if it's going to kill me that quickly. That sounds a little frightening.
Oh, I would imagine like at this point in the story, you're like in your like mid 40s and you've used it quite a bit, so you're like I've probably got to like 50 or 60, and then like
Okay.
you got to teleport like multiple times, like from pole to pole, or like from like Japan to like Kansas.
Or there's like a room full of like people with like guns, and you just gotta like teleport between them all.
Do like a
Yeah.
Nightcrawler situation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nightcrawler is so cool.
So
If I
cool.
could be any X-Men, I would be him.
Yeah.
I'd pick Wolverine, but that's just
I
I like
either
being Canadian. That's superpower.
no, Nightcrawler is fantastic. I mean, Jean Grey has some pretty decent powers. I mean, like she has like mind powers, like and like telekinesis, and then she always seems to have more powers too, like telepathy
Mhm.
sometimes.
Jean Grey is interesting. Well, thank you both very much. I thought it was an interesting question. Now, to get things started, we usually like to share some geek news. So, have either of you got anything for us this week?
Oh, sorry, choking on my own water. I have a few things for geek news. So as we know, I'm a big fan of the Lord of the Rings. And the movies, for me, are such a huge hit because of the Weta Workshop, which is Peter Jackson's like personal like design company that designed all of like the weapons and the armor, character models, like everything. And watching the extras on the movies is super cool. But he actually is selling most of the visual effects studio of Weta Digital to Unity for $1.6 billion. And knowing the kind of things that like Weta work creates, I think that's a really big boost for Unity and like in gaming and stuff. I think it's gonna really help him out. But he is keeping like a small portion of the company still, so that's kind of neat. But like Weta, for instance, like worked on, besides Lord of the Ring, they worked on Black Widow and Avatar. So it just goes to show. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, I know he's keeping a small bit of it. My second bit of news, which I wish Hope was here for me to tell her this, but she might have seen it already, knowing Hope, is that there's going to be a Harry Potter Hogwarts Tournament of Houses like TV show thing, like TV event coming out. And so basically it's November 28th is when it comes out. It's a 4-night event, and it's hosted by Academy Award winning actress Helen Mirren, who we all love. And basically it's going to be like hundreds of trivia questions for a bunch of like people to have to answer and like get better. And I think it's going to go for each different houses or to win. And so I'm going to be watching it most likely to root for my fellow Ravenclaws out there. All right.
Nice.
You two, any of you guys have some news?
I don't really have anything to share, but I just wanted to say that I have a map of Middle Earth hanging right above my desk. So Isaac, I support your you being a fan of Lord of the Rings.
Yes. We love
Awesome.
it.
Yes, we are big Lord of the Rings fans here at Raving Geeks. On my end, on the MCU end, Spider-Man No Way Home has apparently leaked some information. We got a poster which looks really cool and kind of confirms Green Goblin, and I think it's going to be Ned as the Hobgoblin.
That'd be so cool.
Oh my gosh, dude, could you imagine like the character arc of that? Like whether he's multiverse or not, like whether he's like a separate Ned or like our Ned, that would be very interesting. But then we also got some image leaks that have led fans to speculate that this is a confirmation that Daredevil, from the Daredevil from the Netflix show, not just like a new character Daredevil.
Yeah, Charlie
Um,
Cox's Daredevil.
Charlie Cox's Daredevil will be making an appearance, which was already speculated, but this seems to be like more concrete. But we've got no confirmation from Sony or Marvel, so I'd say take it with a grain of salt. But I'd say there's more substance to this rumor than there was before these images came out. There's also less concrete leaks of images with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, but I feel like if that had actually leaked, we would have gotten some from Marvel. So I don't think that leak is as legit, because if that's happening, which they have said it is not multiple times, which would be disappointing, but I still don't believe them. Then they're keeping pretty tight-lipped about it, either until a trailer reveal or the actual release of the movie. And then still on a Disney Plus end, as of tomorrow of the recording of this podcast, but last Friday as of the release of this podcast, Disney Plus will be doing their I don't know what it's exactly called, but Disney Plus Day, with a lot of things being added to the platform, and a couple of reveals. Among those, the things being released are Jungle Cruise will be available for free on Disney Plus, along with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and a couple of other like smaller things making their way to the platform, like films, shorts, Disney-related things. The new season of Jeff Goldblum's show on National Geographic will be making its appearance. There's a lot of other things, like a new Marvel assembled for Shang-Chi, a preview or like a Star Wars special on Boba Fett and the making of that character. But while this is not a part of that reveal, there is another trailer supposedly coming out tomorrow that I'm very excited for. Ladies and gentlemen and NBs, it is a good time to be a Star Wars fan, because we're potentially getting a Kenobi trailer tomorrow.
Oh, hell yes.
Which would
So,
be the 12th of November for
12th of November. For those of you who do not watch the podcast immediately. 12th of November 2021, if you're listening to this in the far future.
Brendan, if that drops tomorrow, will you promise to wait to watch it with me?
Oh, sure. What time will you be home?
Oh, I have no idea.
Sweet. Well, I'll text you if I see that it's dropped, and we'll see when we're home at the same time. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Patrick and I are roommates. But yeah, that's all of my news. So, we have a big announcement to make, everyone. The fourth wall has been broken. Isaac and I finally met each other in person this past week, and we both ended up at the same showing of The Eternals in theaters.
Also met Patrick as well, briefly.
Yes, Patrick and I went to see it together, and we were walking out of the theater, and I was like, Isaac? And Isaac turned around and was like, excuse me, do I know you? And then I popped my mask down so he could see my whole face, and was like, it's me.
And we were, in fact, with my girlfriend as well, we were the last 4 people in the theater, which just goes to show.
We are true geeks. We proved ourselves to be, positive contributors to this podcast.
And we were raving.
We were raving. But the exciting part about this is now we can talk about the movie The Eternals, which has been out for, at the time of this release, a little over a week. So just in general terms, what were y'all's impressions of the movie? Because it has gotten less critical acclaim than other MCU films, and some of those critiques are valid, and some of them are less valid. So what do y'all think?
I really liked it. Um, I'm a big fan of history. I am a history major anyways, and so that was just super fun to like watch all of it go through. I kept leaning over to my girlfriend and whispering, it was like Tenochtitlan, and I was like, that's from the Aztec Empire. And I was like just doing stuff like that. Actually I think it's Inca, but that's all right. I think it's, I don't know. That's why I'm learning. But I really enjoyed it. And I know that a lot of critics complained that it kind of jumps back and forth between time, but I think it kind of was a different mold than most of like the traditional Marvel movie, you know, like the traditional hero's journey, because this followed a bunch of people and we kind of learned things in different orders. And I was a really big fan. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Brendan, as you know, I had very mixed feelings about the movie after we got out of the theater. It's a very enjoyable movie, like it's super fun to watch. I thought all the like action scenes were super cool, like all the getting to see all the like superpowers in action, especially when they were all fighting each other at the end was so cool. Um, yeah, I like the jumping around for me, like between timelines. Not timelines, but like times. I thought it was necessary, like to tell the story, because you know these people are 7,000 years old and they have all these character development moments that take place over like so long. But it just like I don't know, it felt messy to me, I guess is the word I would use. And like yeah, I don't know how they could have done that better in a way that wouldn't have made me feel that way, but I don't know. It was definitely a hard movie to like what's the word for it? I
Wrap your head
guess
around?
yeah, I guess like
To put on film. Not like that, but you know.
yeah. I think you know what I mean, but like it was hard to pull off, I guess, for what they did. And it was a long movie, so they fit a lot of stuff in there.
Hmm. Just if it's necessary, I'm pretty sure we're going to put it in the title of the video, but spoilers for Eternals. We are going to be talking about the entire film. I should have prefaced with that. But if you have not yet seen Eternals, I don't think there was anything too spoilery in that. But I know what I'm going to say is very spoilery. Um, skip if you want to hear a recommendation, skip ahead till about like 90% of the way through. But other than that, see, I agree with both of you. I also really liked the movie. It's one of I guess I'd say it's in the top 50% of MCU movies for me. It's I don't think it's top 10, but it's in the top 50%. Um, and I really liked like the world, kind of like the world building of this MCU Earth kind of in the past. And Patrick, as we find out later in the movie, they're even older than 7,000. They just think they're 7,000 years old. They're
Yeah,
millions
that's
of years
true.
old, which was
Yeah.
like I think that was also part of it too. Is like this is just like a really weird type of existence for us to wrap our minds around,
Yeah.
especially once we're
Char-
revealed.
It really
Character
zoomed out.
development.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
and especially like at that the first, or I guess not, it's not a post credit scene, but like the very end of the movie, like it quite literally zoomed out. You see just how big Escharum is, in terms of like Earth, um, and
I
things
thought
like that.
that was like kind of blew my
Super
mind.
cool.
The visual effects I thought were pretty top tier. When I
Yeah.
said that they were 7,000 years old, I was thinking like character development wise,
Hmm.
because when they at the start of the film, they were like basically babies.
That was one thing that confused me at the beginning of the film. Was like they have this text scroll at the beginning that I know Patrick, you said you kind of had issue with, and I took issue with it
I
because
take issue with it as well.
it gave us factually incorrect information. Like
It was
it
so
basically,
long.
it was long. It was like weird. It wasn't like a Star Wars one where it's like here's the whole like thing where like
Yeah.
yes, yeah, I'm making you read, but like I need to contextualize because I'm throwing you into the middle of a battle scene. This was like, here's some really vague and ambiguous information about this world that we're going to build in this movie, and we're going to tell you exactly, what's up. It's like, Ajax the leader, they've been around for millions of years, but then the first scene, it's like Cersei and Icarus walked in the same window, and they're like, "Hi, I'm Icarus. Hi, I'm Cersei." I'm like, why do you need to introduce yourselves to each other
Yeah.
if you've been around for millions of years? And I had that question throughout the whole movie until they reveal that, you know, the Eternals have gone from planet to planet, allowing Celestials to be born by destroying the planets that they've prepped for them.
Also, they have so many good like actors with great voices that could have narrated that opening crawl.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
I didn't like how silent it was. I don't know, maybe that's just because I'm used to seeing good text crawls that have cool music by John
Yeah.
Williams playing in the background, but
I think
don't
the
know.
point of that was it's supposed to mimic like the quiet of the early universe. I think
That's a good
was
metaphor.
that's what I thought the like reason for it being quiet. But I understand where you're coming from. It's kind of like an awkward silence, especially like from the get-go. This was not the same feel as a typical MCU movie, especially like during the initial like Marvel sequence, which I love how they update them. I saw all the Shang-Chi like bits that they've thrown in there since that was released, so I love that. But like it didn't have the typical like, lots of brass instruments, like music that's kind of a variation of the Avengers theme that comes at the beginning of almost every Marvel movie. But I guess that makes sense because these aren't Avengers and they won't be Avengers. Like they might work alongside them, but I don't think they'd consider
Yeah.
themselves Avengers. Um, that type of thing. So it just started off like with a weird vibe, and like with all the history jumping, I feel like it's hard if you aren't already expecting the type of story that Eternals tells to like keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, that's the thing I was saying to you a lot, like on the car ride back, because I don't really read comics. I don't read comics. And I don't know, maybe I just wasn't like paying close attention enough to some parts or like reading into it too much. But like I walked away with a feeling that like I didn't like have a good enough experience with the movie because I don't have a background with comics. Like it felt like in the ending with Eros, is that was his name?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when Harry Styles comes in, I was like, everybody in the theater was like freaking out, and I had no idea. I mean, I know who Harry Styles is, but I had no idea what the character was.
But it didn't help that the people behind us were talking in the movie, so we didn't get to hear his introduction from Pip the Troll.
Yeah, literally nightmare.
Hmm.
Oh man, that's the worst. Movie
But
theaters, you love them, but they got some downsides.
yeah. But I feel like for me that like kind of that's the encapsulation of what I like didn't love about the movie. But there's a lot that I really liked. Like Patrick, you mentioned the visual effects are really cool. I really like the mystery behind the Celestials because they've like mentioned them in the MCU before, but like this they kind of became more of a central character and what I feel will become more of like a central antagonist in the future. And I thought that was a really good like MCU setup. I thought it tied into the rest of the MCU really well. What did y'all think about that?
Um, I think, I think so because we know a lot about. Not we don't know a lot, but we've seen Celestials in the past, especially with Guardians of the Galaxy. Um, in both movies, there's reference to them. Ego is said to be a Celestial, even though he doesn't look like one. I think it did a good job of tying into things, while still sitting on the sidelines.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that more so it opens up so many possibilities in the future for things too.
Yeah, you can really feel like how many doorways this opened for other like Marvel content.
Hmm. I think the thing that I really liked is like in the whole multiverse idea, like there's a lot of characters intertwined with that. We've got Loki, Wanda, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, like characters that like Wanda and Strange's power scale is a lot different than like Spider-Man's, like what they do. But I think there's also in this whole multiverse arc a lot of people being left out. Like Black Widow, Shang-Chi are not, I feel like, are not really being tied into this multiverse arc, but I think they're being tied into this like celestial arc, and I think the head honcho for that one's going to be Captain Marvel, because we finally found someone who is absolutely 100% stronger than Captain Marvel, and that's the Celestials.
Yeah.
Uh, so like I think that's one of like the critiques of the MCU is once Captain Marvel was introduced, it's like, well, no one can freaking beat her. And I know like there's things they can do with her character arc. It's not just a whole power thing, but I think now we have a threat that is more powerful than the Avengers and maybe the Avengers combined. And I think that is important. Or like the fact that that power exists is important to the MCU, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of like
Uh,
whenever you throw Superman into a comic, like you're gonna have to think of an enemy that Superman can fight because
well, and then like that's another thing about like a good Superman story. Like it's not just about Superman being more powerful. It's about the villain exploiting a flaw in Superman that isn't necessarily about power, and
yeah,
him finding a way to correct
mental
that. Like it's
emotion.
mental or yeah, things like that. Um, so but like I guess going back to the film itself, I thought it was really funny too. Like that was I really liked Kingo's chauffeur,
Yeah.
his valet.
Oh, that was so good.
Dude, it's such a funny character. He's like, no, I trust this guy. He's my guy, and he's just the whole time just filming it for a documentary. If we don't get like a bonus scene or something like that that like has like what he edited together for that documentary, like or at least like if we get an, we're going to get an Eternals too. There's no way with the way that movie ended, we're not. Um, but uh like if we say like at the beginning or in maybe in another MCU film like there's advertisements for Eternals, the the docu-series, I'm going to laugh so hard because and I want to see it. I want to see this docu-series even though I've already seen the movie and everything that took place.
I think he might have actually been an Eternal, and his superpower is having an unlimited supply of cameras.
Not a
He's
bad
like
superpower, to be honest.
he's like Athena, but instead of weapons, he makes cameras.
Yeah,
Or wait, no. He's like Fastus, but only cameras.
only
Yeah.
cameras. Speaking of that, did you guys have a favorite one of the Eternals?
Oh man, they're all so good. Okay, no, I have thought about this. So normally, like comic wise, okay, hold on, I can't say that. I really liked Kingo. I love the actor that plays him, whose name escapes me right now.
Kumal Nanjiani.
Kumal Nanjiani. That guy plays Prismo in Adventure Time, and I love him. Um, I thought he was funny. It might the fact that he's also an actor. I'm like, that's like if
Dude,
I was an
hiding in
immortal
plain
being.
sight.
Yes.
It was so good.
Yeah, the
Although
thing how he said he's like he was pretending to be his dad and then like his grandfather in the past. That was so good.
but the thing is, it was like the past 100 years, he's been like 6 men, which you're like,
How do you pull that off?
how do you?
Well, the thing is, he doesn't age. So, like,
Yeah.
my guess, he just paid people like to like grow up, and then like they would like disappear for a few years, and then come back looking exactly like the other guy, or like I guess makeup and like movie magic. But like, I don't know if any of the Eternals can pull off like being different people throughout and not having to move. It's definitely Kingo.
Yeah.
Or he just like would only work for a certain amount of years and then retire.
Mhm.
I mean, okay, he's got to be so wealthy. I like he's a Bollywood star, so cool. I also really liked I liked Makari was super cool. The
Yes.
super speed was a really cool way of doing it. Like they didn't just do the normal like slow down time.
Dude, if they did the animation and like the visual effects for super speed that they did for Mercari, with I just realized that Mercury, duh. I was trying to figure out which like historical gods each of them were based off of, and so like some of them were easy, like Festus is Hephaestus, Athena is Athena, Icarus is Icarus, and then it was like Mercari, what the Mercury. Um,
Yeah, I realized that randomly when I was like driving a couple days ago and I was like, oh, it's Makari, it's Mercury.
exactly. I thought that was really fun too, but that's just part of the Eternals, like that's just their names.
Yeah.
But like if they did the visual effects for Mercari, like for the Flash, either in the TV show or in the movie, I'd be so much more into their super speed because it was
Yeah.
really cool. Like
watching her fight was so cool. How she would just like hit people with the shock waves of her running at them. That was
Mhm.
so awesome.
Your guys' favorites.
Oh, you want me to
Oh,
go first?
go for it, Patrick.
Even?
I don't know. I've been bouncing around between several of them. I really like Gilgamesh because
Yeah.
I love me a good gentle giant who's like just a really wholesome guy, but then when he needs to, he can just mess some people up. Um, I don't know, there's just something simple and cool about being able to punch things really hard.
Yeah.
I just thought he was a cool character. He wasn't like featured that prominently, but he was like a really good supporting character, and I really liked that relationship with him and Thena.
I also really like that weird like caretaker one where like I don't know, you think of them all as warriors, and like he shows this softer side, and like Thena, who is like the warrior, like oh she's gonna be the tough one, where like she has because of like the the issues with like her memory erasure, like she can't always be the tough one. She has to be weak, and Gilgamesh being like, no, that's okay. I will be here to help you when you need it. That like
Yeah.
support system, and like a couple that is not like romantic that are like that's rare in a lot of
Yeah.
storytelling, and I thought that's a really cool relationship to kind of like put like to show people and say like this can exist.
I really like that too. That was one of my favorite things about the movie is that they didn't like make them fall in love, but they were just really good homies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's strong platonic friendships exist, and quit burying them. No, he had strong
Yes.
hands, and he had a strong.
I also
Yes.
really liked that. Dude, and then like he was fun too, like the whole like aspect of him being like a good cook and homemaker and everything like that. The whole
Oh
and then
my
the whole thing
God.
with the pie.
When he
Saliva.
opened the door with the apron.
The whole thing like for the docu series is like Gilgamesh, he's the strong one, the tough one, like the hardest hitter of us all, and then he's just like just the cook.
Ah.
Love that.
Yeah. I liked the I don't know, some of the reviews I read said that like the diversity and representation of a lot of characters was really forced, but no, I think they handled it really beautifully. And I was thinking about like what each character kind of represents, and the one that was like kind of escaping me a little bit was like what Thena is, I guess. And I kind of interpreted it as like someone with PTSD almost, and kind of and mental illness in general.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a really good thing to show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about the diversity thing, I was worried. I guess like you're always worried like when including diversity, you don't want to make it like tokenism, but it didn't feel like that. Like the diversity was not like a part that played in the story of like oh we all look different, that's important, and it wasn't like I feel like it wasn't like tokenism, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
So
because and like I did see a bit on the internet that people were upset that um Gilgamesh was played by a South Korean man, and it's like first of all, Gilgamesh was most likely a fictional person, anyways. They were all just so cool. Brendan, who was your favorite?
I gotta say my favorite, like he was sidelined for most of the movie, and I kind of forgot until they brought him back like into the like spotlight that he was in there. But I really liked Festus. Um,
Yeah,
like you thought like this whole time, oh he's the one that develops the technology, and then like his guilt about he was the one that developed the atom bomb, and that's why he kind of like secluded himself. I was like, holy crap, that's like a heavy burden to carry.
yeah,
But he kind of overcame it by like starting his family with his husband and his son, and but then what like cemented it for me, I was like, oh, this is like touching, is like in the final fight with Icarus, he beat Icarus basically.
I
yes,
thought he was
I've
gonna
been
get
waiting.
sidelined, but like because he was just kind of like the guy who makes stuff the whole time. But watching him fight was so cool, like how yeah, that was really cool.
I like that. Dude, the line where it's like, I've been waiting like for I don't remember exactly what it's like. I've been waiting to clip your wings. I was like, that is such
yeah.
a
That was
good
so
line. I was
good.
like, that
Oh,
is brutal. And like, oh, the fact that he was able to like hold him down and like,
yeah,
beat Icarus, who they were all like, no, he's the most powerful. There's no way we can beat him. I just thought Fastest had like, even though he was sidelined for a bit, for the time he was on screen, I cared about him more than Cersei and Icarus, who were the main Eternals on screen the whole time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was terrified that I was like, if he dies, I'm like, oh my
I
god.
will be upset if Fastus dies. I'll be upset if Kingo dies. I'll be upset if Mercari dies. I was upset when Gilgamesh died. Like,
Spoilers. No, just kidding.
I,
It's all spoilers. Yeah.
yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
upset when I thought Droog died, though.
Yeah, no, me either.
The funny thing is, I think I liked Druid more after I thought he died, because when he came back and he hit Sprite with a rock and he's like, wow, that was a very moving speech. Oh, that was so good.
That was pretty funny.
That's the thing. Like, they had such a big cast, and I think part of it, like, I wasn't connected to every character, which is very tough. And I think that's another like drawback of the movie is the main characters, Cersei and Icarus, are the ones who I felt least connected to. Like,
Yeah.
I liked Icarus more when he revealed himself as a villain because I'm like, cool, it's good that I don't like him.
Yeah.
But with Cersei, I mean, they can do it in a sequel, and like, I don't dislike her. I think she has like a good journey, but I'm not as connected to her as some of the other characters because I feel like Cersei never got like she liked the humans the most and was most invested in them, but I feel like she was the one who became human the least besides Icarus. Like Sprite really wanted to but couldn't, and that like was kind of humanizing. Like, oh, I get that. We all know how it feels to be in an out group. Gilgamesh and Thena came up with their own like reclusive lifestyle that like that mimics humans. Mercari was like, I just want to go home. A lot of people get that like when they're stuck. Fastus found a family. Like,
Druid abandoned like everyone because he didn't want humans to kill each other and lived with them for years. So
which was humanizing, but also you're like, okay, Druig's kind of a jerk because he's just mind controlling these people to make them not hurt.
He's kind of a cult leader.
Yeah, when they were fighting the deviants and he was just like making all of his like people do things for him, I was like, no. That's
Although
terrible.
he did pull out a shotgun, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, that was funny.
Didn't know they were gonna use human weapons.
Yeah, Druig was a weird case, and like, I don't know, I keep forgetting about Druig. But then, speaking of the deviants,
normally, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go for it.
I was gonna say normally Druig is a villain because and I mean he even had like black and dark red armor too, and so like from the commercials too, I was like, oh, Druig's probably gonna be like bad, and he wasn't. So that surprised me. Deviants though, yeah.
Speaking of the deviants, that going into it, I'm like, okay, so they're gonna do the deviants are like the main enemies, but like with the plot twist, it's like, okay, so the deviants aren't evil necessarily. I mean, they evolved to do something that is like we consider bad, but like they're not the villains because they're like, you are the ones that are killing us. Yes, we're predators, but like you're hunting us down and trying to eradicate us for doing what we were made to do. It's like a very interesting thing, and I thought like the evolution of they didn't give his name in the movie, but I think he's called Crow is the one deviant.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like I never felt connected to the deviants like or anything like that, or to Crow, but I was like, this is a good parallel for or a good example of like issues with the Celestials' plan. Like if it wasn't for the deviants, then I'd be like, okay, maybe the sacrifice is okay, but I'm like, no, the Celestials like aren't this omniscient or aren't this like omni-intelligent. Like they can be flawed. They can mess up. So I feel like if they can, then why not second guess this plan of theirs?
So. Yeah. Also, he was played by Bill Skarsgard.
Oh, really?
Sweet. Kind of a waste of Bill Skarsgard.
Yeah. The one like complaint I had about the visual effects was Crow. Like it was kind of nearing. I mean, he wasn't like human, but it was kind of nearing Uncanny Valley for me a little bit. I don't know, it just made me feel really uncomfortable looking at him.
Yeah, like it looked like someone like took a video of a guy and they took his like eyes and then they did like the cut tool and like copy and then just moved another one next to it.
Yeah, the eyes were not doing it for me.
Luckily, he was not on screen that much.
Yeah, luckily, but then also like I really wanted them to do. I thought they were going up to like an enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, where they were going to team up with Crow to get Icarus, but I liked that bit with Thena. I thought it was cool that she was able to conquer Crow, but I was really expecting Crow to be more of a useful character, especially coming from like again like a subjugated species that literally the whole purpose was to die. I thought it'd be a cooler like from the ashes thing.
I actually have a theory of why he wasn't.
Oh.
I have this whole theory about why this movie is one of the most important movies in terms of like changing the MCU. But we can talk about that once we're done talking about the actual movie. Is there anything else y'all wanted to talk about? Because I can move into this theory if you like.
I did want to talk about that. I loved their costumes.
Oh yeah.
If you look at the comics of the characters, they have otherworldly costumes that would be kind of hard to find on screen. But like the way that they did it, where it's all these like intricate shapes, and then almost like, because I know that they designed it to make it look almost like space, where like when you see like the like clouds and the stellars in space, to like kind of look like that. I thought that was so cool. I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
I also like I feel like visually this movie was really, really, really well done. Like I think this is Oscar level visual effects.
Oh yeah. I actually had a question I wanted to ask you guys about Ajax specifically. I was kind of unclear about what all of her powers were. I know she had like the healing abilities, but it seemed like she had like some kind of like mind control thing that she used on I think it was Thena at one point.
I think so when Thena was like kind of like, I think as like the head Eternal with that like sphere that was in her chest, she had the ability to reset their minds. Like and like so like that power would have been passed to Cersei, but Cersei never used it. Like I think it came from the fact that she was like the prime Eternal.
So like was she the one that was wiping their memories every time?
She had to do it on the ship because the tech was on the ship, but I think like some of those powers were inherent to her.
Interesting.
It's probably in connection with the celestial whose name Asherim.
Asherim.
And that's probably like we gotta get to the ship so that I can literally like almost like take you to that place and get your mind wiped. Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of the ship, I saw a review that called it a giant burnt Dorito, and I thought that was really funny.
And accurate.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And then I think the last thing we should touch on real quick is that second end credit scene with Dane Whitman and this mysterious voice in the background.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Dane Whitman, who's played by Kit Harington, who was kind of like a sidelined in the movie, but to set him up as like an important character for the future in the MCU. Isaac, I know you're a little more familiar with him than I am, but
I am. I have him actually right here up on my Marvel Avengers Ultimate Character Guide. Yeah, so Dane Whitman is if people don't want this spoiled, because this is not movie spoilers, this is like comic book spoilers, then close your ears and zoom forward. But yeah, basically he comes from a long line of people that wielded the ebony blade, and it goes all the way back to like Sir Percy of Scandia, who used to like was like a knight of the round table with Merlin, and so the sword was created by Merlin. But the sword's cursed, so that if you like use it immorally, it like basically makes you insane and go evil. And like the original Black Knight in the comics, like the first one we meet is actually his uncle, the one that like they call in that phone call, and he's like, and Cersei's like, you should really reconnect with your uncle. Like that was the first Black Knight, and basically he was a bad guy. And so Dane Whitman he takes on the Black Knight persona as a good guy. But the sword is interesting because it can cut through anything, and also it helps absorb like magic as well. So like you can go against magical beings if you're wielding the sword, which I think is actually pretty important for the future of the MCU.
Does the sword have a mind of its own?
Kind of. I don't know too much about the sword itself. But I mean, if it has the ability to make you go insane, I'd like to think so. It almost like, especially in the movie, it almost looked like it was like alive. Like
yeah, it was like making like those spooky whispering noises, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you guys look up who that mysterious voice was?
Absolutely, I did. At first, I was like, "Oh, that is definitely like a Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury move." But I was like, it's not quite his voice though. But I believe It is Mahershala Ali's Blade.
Yes.
Who is super
Yeah.
exciting. If you've they have done Blade movies before, but with Wesley Snipes. So if you've seen those, or if you haven't, if you're not familiar with Blade, you can always go watch those movies. But Blade is a vampire hunter or a vampire slayer, but also like he is a
He's a
vampire
half
kind of.
vampire. Yeah, he was. His mom was pregnant when she was bit, and so he's the Daywalker. He's half
Mhm.
vampire.
So who's like another like kind of mystical side of the MCU, but like mystical, like on Earth mystical, not cosmic mystical. So I was really excited for that, and a Blade movie is confirmed to be coming and has been for a little while. So I'm excited
Yeah.
for that. So my guess is Dane Whitman would return as the Black Knight in the Blade movie.
And I know it's like weird. You're like, why is Blade and Dane Whitman getting like teamed up? Is it because his name's Blade and Dane has a blade? But there was a moment in the comics where the ebony blade that Dane Whitman was using was actually a fake that was placed there by Dracula. And so, I mean, Dracula's a vampire. So that's a pretty, I don't know if they're going to go that route, but
Well, I mean, Blade could have knowledge of it because of something like that. And like what he says is like, "Are you sure you're ready for that?" So obviously has some experience. So maybe
yeah.
he like knew Dane's uncle, and he was a villain and was the one that stopped him, or something like that. But it, sets up a little more local Earth stuff than the rest of the movie, which I think is some of the most universe shattering stuff besides multiverse stuff that we could learn. So would you like to hear my theory behind what this all means?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
So
I have a guess as well, but go ahead.
it all centers around Eros, Harry Styles' character, the brother of Thanos, being revealed not only like to exist in the MCU, but is an Eternal. Like he says, fellow Eternals. So this means if he's Thanos' brother, Thanos is either an Eternal, a Deviant, or some mix of both, like he is in the comics. And looking back, like I first was like, "Oh, this doesn't make sense." My theory is that Thanos knew about the Celestials, and his plan to snap half the life out of the universe was a way to stop the Celestials. And the Avengers bringing everyone back caused the Celestials to be
Yeah.
able to be a problem again. So the reason I think this works, um, obviously Thanos is known as the Mad Titan, so he's not thinking 100% clearly. I think he was probably driven mad by Titan being destroyed, or at least partially destroyed by a Celestial being born. So like in Infinity War, he's like, I saw this coming as a problem probably because he knew that as an Eternal slash Deviant, the Celestials were going to destroy Titan. And we have like in the flashbacks, we see the planet explode, but then when Tiamat was coming out of Earth didn't quite explode when he started coming out. Like it wasn't fracturing or things like that. So probably he just absorbs the energy and like is fine. And like there might still be rock. Like there's debris in the moon, like with the moons on Titan, there's still like stuff intact, and it's just not livable anymore. So I think Thanos wanted to stop the Celestials on Titan and failed and could not do it, and that is what drove him to madness. And then was like, to stop the Celestials, I have to stop life from growing because they do this when there's enough life force. So the plot hole of why didn't Thanos just snap double the resources is because he actually wanted to stop life from growing so that the Celestials, wouldn't get energy and would, I guess die out. We don't know how, like, if they're like super immortal or if they don't get enough energy, they can't create like more universe.
Yeah.
So, and to explain like why like Thanos wouldn't have, told people he's the Mad Titan. Also, like he probably thinks that all of like the Avengers are beneath him and wouldn't understand or something like that. Like you're just mortals, you wouldn't get it. And I don't know. I feel like there's nothing that he says that like goes inherently against this theory. He's just bad at sharing and is a little cuckoo after the trauma of his entire people and planet that he loved being destroyed.
Yeah, I think that could be a good like future plot thing to talk about with Thanos, if they do it the right way. And I think I was telling you this when you told me your theory. I think
they need to do it in a way that doesn't just feel like retconning. If they say like, oh, Thanos knew that this like the Celestials were a problem the whole time, and he wanted to do the snap because of that, not because of like planets didn't have enough resources. I think that's just going to kind of like, I don't know, that would just feel sloppy to me. And I think they need
going back
they need to
to
explain like his madness, like you were saying.
Going back to like what he actually said is like he's like, you know, eventually planets will destroy themselves because like there's not like because they just keep growing and they can't sustain themselves. But that like he didn't say like they died of starvation, they died of climate change. They he said they just grew too big, basically. So it's kind of ambiguous and vague that I think that like if we went, it wouldn't necessarily be a retcon. It'd just be Thanos is bad at sharing and is focusing on the wrong parts of the problem because he's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Thanos is he's the son of a Lars, is what they say. So he's the son of possibly an Eternal. In the comics, it's an Eternal.
With Red Skull in Infinity War, son of Alars. Yeah.
And him and his brother are actually the only Eternal children, like in the comics. And it was because of a really special event where like his parents had cosmic wedding rings, and that's the reason they were able to have children. And so maybe his father was the Prime Eternal and like knew the information and like told Thanos, like it's like one day we're all gonna die, and like it's the Celestials bidding. And like that's kind of like Thanos doesn't know all the information. He just knows that if there's too many people, this happens. And so maybe it's also like for him, it's a lack of full information.
And that also explains how he survived Titan when no one else did, is that he like is privy to this information and is special.
Yeah, Isaac, if they explained it that way, like that would work for me. Like I wouldn't feel like that'd be retconning.
Plausible deniability.
Yes.
And I think this sets up like the whole like phase, I mean like I guess like phase 5 Avengers like threats, because if like Celestials pose a problem for Captain Marvel. If Escharum decides to, or Arishem, I don't remember exactly, decides, you know, after Eternals 2, I don't know, I guess Eternals 2, in my mind, the way it would go is they do Eternals 2, you know, they'd rescue Cersei and those who were taken by Arishem, but then Arishem is like, no, or like there'd be another threat before what I'm thinking would happen later in Eternals 2. At the end, the Eternals are like, Arishem does not like Earth. We are here to protect it just in case there's a celestial threat, but we don't know how to fix it because we don't have, you know, the powers of Tiamat. But that also could be part of, you know, Eternals 2, figuring out how to harness that celestial power. But I think this is where Galactus comes in.
Yes, I was waiting for that. Go ahead.
Yes, so Avengers 5, Arishem's like, okay, well, Earth needs to go. They're a problem. Because in theory, these Eternals that are now on Earth could stop the rest of the Celestials from expanding. So I'm going to send like my assassin Celestial, and I think makes sense. Like there's different classes of Celestials. Like there's the galaxy builders like Tiamat and Arishem, and then there's like the proliferators like Ego, and then like
that's what you want to call them.
I don't know what else to call them, but I think there's a third class of like destroyers. Like there's the creators. Like I guess Ego I'd include in this, like maybe he's like a lesser creator. And then there's
the destroyers would probably be that guy that shows up in Guardians of the Galaxy with the Power Stone.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. And there's destroyers of like, okay, this didn't work. Oh, sorry, another Thanos thing. Gamora's planet. Before he got the Infinity Stones, he's like, I still have to do this work to reduce the population. And they've been, you know, he said like the planet's been thriving ever since I killed half the people and took you from it. It could be saying like they were he knew the planets that were seeded with Celestials, and that's why maybe he had his eye on Earth as well. He knew those planets and was like, okay, these are the ones I need to go to, and these specific planets I need to take out. And like I feel like that would make sense why it's not like why he doesn't have like this empire stretching like certain things that we know about. And he just is like, I'm going to conquer planets, take half-life, instead of like these grand design to rule, because he didn't seem to have like a desire to rule. And even like
he just wanted to farm.
Yeah. And then in Endgame, when he's like, I'll shred this universe down to its last atom, I think that was him rethinking his plan. Like killing half the life, they'll try to bring it back. So I need to create a universe where the Celestials don't exist, was what he was thinking. Like, I need to, or like, even if I can't, because we don't know if the Infinity Stones could destroy the Celestials. My guess is no, because they existed before the Infinity Stones. He's like, I need to create a universe where people aren't going to grow like this.
Which
Or like,
kind of just goes to show that maybe he was just being kind of a dick to the Asgardians when he found them not on a planet but in a ship floating. But for all we know, he might have just amassed his entire empire. You know, the children of Thanos and all that. They might not even know the whole Celestial thing, and so they're still just following on the kill half of everyone.
And with the Asgardians, he could be like they're going to repopulate, and if they populate a planet, this could be a problem with expansion. So I'll take out half of them.
Maybe they have a lot of energy being that can live for 5,000 years. So on the topic of Galactus, I have a theory as well. I'm not dead set on the theory, but I've been thinking about it the past few days, where if he's not an Eternal, I mean a Celestial, but just, you know, like as he was before, he was a being that existed before the Big Bang. What if he can only eat planets that don't have Celestials growing in their core? And now that Earth no longer has a Celestial growing in its core, it is now a viable planet for him to consume.
And is super attractive because it had a Celestial.
Exactly. So
dead, tasty Celestial just lying there.
Exactly.
But maybe he can absorb that and become a Celestial?
I don't know. He's hungry.
But then I also think like it's a good threat for the Avengers now, because we've got our big power levels like Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange that can take on Galactus. But we also have like our more Earth-based ones that could take on like the other threat, like Spider-Man and you know, Captain America, Sam Wilson. Like, I feel like that's what we're missing though, is like a more localized threat, because like they can't all be fighting Galactus in space.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why we got, you know, Baron Zemo still out there.
Well, I mean, the Thunderbolts, I still think is going to happen. Like, I think that's the localized thing. So maybe they're like, we have a plan to take them out, and they have to stop them concurrently with stopping Galactus.
And then also all this talk with Celestials and this whole new phase of everything brings in, so in the new Thor movie, the enemy's gonna be Gore the God Butcher, who's a pretty sick character if you've ever looked at those comics. But basically he has the all-black Necro sword or something like that, and it's very similar to like the Ebony Blade, so I don't know what they're gonna do there. But basically his whole gig is that he wants to like kill gods and deities and Celestials. And so I don't know if that ties into this thing. I mean, like Nowhere had its head cut off, the Celestial.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
You know, and so whether
that
I'm not saying I'm gonna try and say that Dane with the Ebony Blade has a chance of cutting the head off a Celestial, or if Gore the God Butcher is, whether or not he's gonna get defeated in the Thor movie, or he's gonna continue, because I mean, like, Peter Quill's the son of a Celestial, and he's chilling in that movie. We know he's gonna be in Thor, so I'm a bit worried for his sake, but I don't know.
Didn't he lose all of his powers once Ego died though?
Yes, I mean, as far as we know, but I mean, there's still DNA there. He wouldn't just revert to being only his mom's chromosome.
But like with Ego, like I feel like the power drained from it, because like all the things he seeded on planets, like no longer like viable. So maybe it's like dormant, and you could activate it, but I feel like that's dangerous, because then you can reactivate all the ego.
Yeah,
ego
all that
seeds.
giant glue. I mean, not glue, but you know, like gloopy stuff that no one ever talked about after that.
Yeah, how do they get rid of that stuff?
I think it disappeared when Ego, like, it stopped moving and then probably like just like disintegrated. I guess maybe that means there's no more Ego goop.
Or it was edible.
Yeah, maybe it was edible. That's what.
If they ate Ego, no, please don't be edible.
So she turns Tiamat into like marble. I don't know what that's going to do to the ecosystem of the Earth. Oh, I thought it was marble.
It looked like ice, but like I feel like marble makes more sense.
But either way, like I don't know if she could turn it into anything. Like maybe not. Why not? I don't know. Marble's not the best resource to have an abundance of on Earth. It's nice, or ice. I mean, ice would be nice. That rhymed. Because that's a waters. But could she turn him into a bunch of like tacos?
She could go back and change it to vibranium or something.
Yes, which brings up the question: did like Festos help the Wakanda with vibranium? Or did she
Ooh,
help?
that is a good theory.
Did Fastos know Howard Stark? If he was working on the Manhattan Project, there's a decent chance that Stark created Cap's shield with Festus's help.
I believe it.
I feel like
Wow.
Festus definitely got around through history.
Yeah. Until he stopped because he said,
Until
"Oh,
he stopped because he created the atom bomb.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that just shows just how like intricate this movie can be because it spans the whole timeline of the MCU and before.
yeah,
I just think that was really cool. I'm really excited for a sequel. I kind of already said like what I think a sequel would encompass. I know there's been talks because of the not great reception about replacing Chloe Zhao as the director, but I personally I think that'd be a bad move. I think
Who
she did
was
a
the
great
director
job.
initially?
Chloe Zhao.
Oh, like
I,
before you say they replaced
no, there's
another
been talk.
director?
No, she is the
Oh,
director of the first one. I think she should stay director for the second one.
I got you. Yeah.
Because I don't know, I like the movie, and like you said, it was a tough plot to do. But like, if I feel like as a director, that was a great job, and that's more of a producer decision in terms of like that plot structure. And I don't think they'd need that plot structure for a sequel, so that could improve it. I think a lot of people also went in thinking this would be like Guardians of the Galaxy, because like it's a similar like type of comic book in terms of like audience reception. Is like
yeah.
there was a niche for Guardians of the Galaxy before the movie, and then the movie showed up, and now they're more popular. I think they were hoping that was the same with Eternals. And I hope this does expose more people to more Eternals comics because I wasn't really familiar, and I'm still not super familiar, but now they're like on my reading list. So
Um, I didn't even know that like Star Fox wasn't Eternal for the longest time. I just always liked him. He's like in this guide I've had since I was a kid. And he's literally just like this guy that can fly around in space, shoot beams, and make people feel pleasant. I'm like, yeah, Star Fox. And the fact that he's Thanos' brother, like I found that out and I was like, that's insane. Thanos had a brother. But those comics are pretty interesting because usually they involve, I don't know, some pleasure. So
yeah, I was gonna say I feel like they might have to adjust his powers post Me Too movement. I feel like that's just
yeah,
no longer acceptable for good reason. Um, but it's I don't know, it's an interesting power to be able to manipulate how people's emotions anyway. So like I mean pleasure as an emotion, but like that feeling. So I feel like that's interesting. And I mean, I feel like Harry Styles playing him kind of like removes that idea of toxic
yeah.
masculinity, just because I mean who Harry Styles is, and that was probably a very conscious choice by, Feige. I think that was a Feige decision,
I think it was a
and
really smart choice. Yeah,
I think I don't know Harry Styles as an actor, but I mean, in that post-credit scene with Pip the Troll, I also like that they included Pip the Troll and that Patton Oswalt is playing Pip the Troll.
yes.
Um, I feel like there's a lot of good potential with that, and makes me excited for our new Eternals too. But
After Harry Styles said like two words in that credit scene, the people who were talking the whole time behind us, they're like, "Oh my god, he can act too."
Wasn't he in Dunkirk? Was that Harry Styles, or was that a different
that
One
that
Direction?
was a member of One Direction. Let me Dunkirk cast.
It's so
Yeah,
hard to know these. Yeah,
yeah. So
Dunkirk was good, and he played a soldier, so that was kind of cool.
cool. I mean, I'm excited. I think this has altered the MCU. Like, obviously, I haven't confirmed it, but like, this has changed the MCU. Like, I think almost more than any film that has not been an Avengers film. Um, if everything that I've talked about like ends up being true, but like they just added so much depth to things that we hadn't really talked about and kind of opened up. I know Guardians opened up like kind of the cosmic MCU because Thor really took place on Earth until after Guardians.
Yeah,
Um, and I think this has kind of opened up like not only like the time span of the MCU, but it's gone beyond cosmic into like universal, and like the scale just upped the scale so much. And while also keeping it like Earth focused in a good way, but not in like a bad way. Because we always talk about, oh, Earth is so, Earth is special. It actually is special now. It contained a celestial. Um, like there's a universal reason that there's focus on Earth. But anyway, as always here on Raving Geeks, we do like to end with some recommendations for our viewers, whether that be movies, video games, comics, or anything else geeky. So do either of you have any recommendations?
I'm gonna recommend something. We were talking about Daredevil earlier. I actually just finished season 1 of the Netflix show,
Yeah.
and I'm a big fan. There's a journalist character that I really like in it, so that definitely got me sticking around.
I love Daredevil. I love Charlie Cox. I love the guy that plays Kingpin because he does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I don't know, terrifying. The way you can make such like a guy with no abilities, just like terrifying. My recommendation is besides Eternals, which I recommend people should see. Don't just look at what critics think about it, and you watch it yourself. And if you're like, "Wow, I didn't like this movie," that's okay. Um, Today is November 11th, and I did purchase Skyrim Anniversary Edition. So I'll
Happy
recommend
birthday, Skyrim.
Happy birthday, Skyrim. So I got that. I played a little bit, and I got a fishing rod. I have yet to use it, but I recommend that. And if you don't want to support another re-release of Skyrim, that's okay, because I already spent the money.
Now that Skyrim has a fishing mechanic, it's actually a good game. No game is complete until you can fish in it. That's my opinion.
That's
And
why,
that's
like,
why Animal Crossing is a top charting game.
there it is. I was gonna say, that's why like Legend of Zelda peaked early because they had fishing in it.
Yo, Pokemon Legends Arceus. There's been fishing, and they're just gonna step up the fishing.
Yeah, Pokemon's been fishing since game one. That's how
Since
you
game
know.
1. That's where the success of Pokemon I can attribute solely to the fishing mechanism, where you can basically only catch Magikarp.
Hey, but Magikarp is the best Pokemon, so
I mean,
It has potential.
that has potential.
he's number 1 in my heart.
Yeah.
And
Number one in my heart is Bulbasaur because he's number one on the National Pokedex.
and he's number 119 in the Pokedex, I think. That's probably wrong. I wanted to make the joke and couldn't make it. If I'm right, I'm gonna laugh so hard. Magikarp, Pokedex 129. I was 10 off. I thought Gyarados was 120. It's 130. Anyway, well, my recommendation, actually, I don't mean to betray us, but is actually another podcast.
Level Up Chips with Mike
Level Up
Gonzalez.
Chips, literally any CM Life podcast. We have a couple niches, whether you're into like news, sports, music, video games, but also the podcast Dear Hank and John. If either of you have ever watched a Crash Course video, Hank and John Green are the ones that do that. I listen to the podcast. Like, there's over 300 episodes. I listened to the whole thing over the summer at work. It's really good advice podcast. There's like some sentimental stuff, but also like it's fun and light for the most part. Yeah. Also, Big Mouth.
Sad and educational.
It is. You know, at work it made me cry a couple times. I had to like not be near my coworkers so they wouldn't ask why. But I also Big Mouth season 5 came out last week. I've already watched the season. It's really good. If you stopped watching Big Mouth, like season 4 because it got a little weird. It's back closer to what it was in the first couple seasons, and I really enjoyed it. So, well, that is all we have for y'all today. Thank you all for joining us here on Raving Geeks. Make sure you leave a comment wherever you're listening from. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear ideas for opener questions, ideas for episodes, any news you want us to talk about, hot takes you want from the geeks over here. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok at Raving Geeks. And I just want to give a special shout out and thank you to our guest host, Patrick Bouman.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
I'm happy you can make it. Yeah, I really enjoyed your insight on Eternals, seeing as I've been picking your brain about it since we saw it. But as always, I've been Brendan Valentine alongside my fellow co-hosts.
I've been Isaac Hunter.
And I've been Patrick Bouman.
Stay geeky and have a great week, everyone. So long.